November 21st marked the second anniversary of Planetside 2. Hey everyone, I'm kidRiot. The devs were kind enough to sit down with me for a short Q&A in celebration of Planetside 2. Okay, hi, I'm with Bill Yeatts, our director for Planetside 2. How does it feel to be back on the Planetside 2 team?
It feels really good. I'm familiar with it. I love militaristic type stuff. I love the edgy war type games. And shooters are always fun too. Working on shooters. Although me coming back, I'm like, hey, I want to change this, I want to change that. So that some people like that, some people don't. But hopefully, what I come up with for them will be really good. Speaking
of changes, what overall aesthetic theme are you looking to implement into Planetside 2? And how much will stay the same? How much do you plan to change?
I really want to make the game feel gritty. So there's some things that have very vibrant colors, very super primary colors. I want to pull those back a little bit, pull them back, make it feel a little bit more militarized. So in some aspects, you may not notice a difference. In others, you may see a difference. I guess that answers the question.
Yeah. No, it does. And one of, at least for me personally as a player, one of the attractions to the Planetside 2 aesthetic theme is that it is somewhat tongue-in-cheek. Are you going to maintain that, or is that going to change?
I'm actually probably a little bit more open to goofiness. Like having funny camo patterns, or putting if someone wanted to make a funny hat that we could use for a special event, I don't have any problem with that.
That's good to hear. Are there any new player studio elements planned for the future? I mean, for example, like vehicle cosmetics, maybe infantry armor designs, more customization?
So the new tool just went live today. That paves the way for a lot of stuff. And the reason it does is we had to do a lot of work here. A lot of people don't realize that someone would make an asset and then all the hard stuff, we have to do it. Right. The tool now kind of enforces people to have to do that work. So I'm hoping that we can get more composite armors from Player Studio composite armors. One of the things that we haven't done max helmets. We should probably do max helmets. And vehicle cosmetics pretty much across the board are probably totally going to be good to do. The one thing about vehicle cosmetics that I think a lot of people don't realize is it is a very small subset. If you're not a Liberator pilot, you're not going to buy cosmetics of it. So the people making the cosmetics probably won't have as much to benefit from that. But we're not really, in terms of if it's cosmetic, I'm open for getting that kind of stuff in the game.
I think a recent hot topic, on Reddit, obviously, is the camo coverage. And I know you've gone back and forth on that, but what's the goal behind the proposed changes?
So when I came back to the team, I had several people tweet at me and email me pictures of VS guys, and it's like, guess the faction. And I kind of look at it, I'm like, I guess that is kind of a problem. Because the point of camo in our game was not to actually make you hard to see. It was mainly, hey, look how cool I look. That was actually the objective. So we don't want it to be like, oh, if you play VS and you do this certain camo pattern, some players just won't recognize you as an enemy. And it's sort of, there's a lot of people, going back and forth. Well, you should be able to recognize the shape or do whatever. But we talked about it, and it's like, well, the original camo pattern that we did for VS was actually much more similar to what we just come up with.
Right.
But I figured doing kind of a back and forth thing and letting people kind of give feedback, and obviously I didn't listen to every single thing. I would be endlessly changing it. But we kind of came up with something that I think it works really well, and then I'm going to go through to the other factions and make sure they follow the same enforcement, which is very specific areas are showing faction color. The rest of it can just be covered with camo.
Okay. One last question. Once PS4 does or PS2 does release on the PS4, how are you going to handle Player Studio? Are all the items going to be instantly available for the PS4?
I don't know if they'll be instantly available, but it's the same asset base. So.
Right.
If you're a Player Studio creator and you create a really cool helmet on the PC right now, it will eventually be on the PS4.
Well, what was your favorite piece of new content you and the team added to Planetside 2 last year?
I actually really liked the Valkyrie. I thought the Valkyrie was an interesting addition to the vehicle gameplay, and I enjoyed playing the whole concept of being able to sit in the rumble seats is really fun for me. Just because it added in a lot of technical challenges and overcoming those hurdles to allow people to actually use their own weapons while they're in a vehicle flying around. Was just a really cool concept. And a lot of stuff came together and it came out. It was a fairly clean launch as well, so we were excited about that.
Okay. What are some of the exciting things that could possibly come out next year?
Well, I'm really excited for the auto turrets. That's one of my favorite features. I've been trying to get that in. I wanted to get that in for launch. I really think that those are a feature that can really expand the gameplay, allow players like me who aren't really good Twitch players to actually get in there and be active and be a part of the game a little bit more than we are right now. Because if you put me in a room with almost anyone else on the team, they're going to kill me one-on-one because I'm just not that quick. But if you give me time to prep and strategize, I can hang in there with people. So I'm excited for that option.
Okay. Now, auto turrets, I think possibly more than any other change, can change the dynamic of Planetside, considering it's a PvE type of thing. Like, how do you feel that's going to change the way battles play out? And if the AI works out the way you expect it to, are there going to be any further changes along that line?
Yeah. So one of the things I think we want to do with the turrets is kind of make them not an addition to the playstyle, but sort of that's going to become your playstyle is the turrets. It's not like you're going to have a turret set up and still be able to put up your mana turrets and do everything else that you can do in addition to that. The way we're kind of doing it is, if you're willing to invest the time into the turret in the game to set it up correctly and to maintain it, that's going to be your role in the game. So it's going to be, balancing it obviously is going to be really important. Getting out in front of the players and making sure that it actually fits the way the game is, the way the game feels. We wouldn't want to put anything in the game that is just overpowered. That's our biggest concern. So we're going to kind of ease it in, make sure that it's definitely a different gameplay style, but the benefit to that, I think, is that it opens up the game to a lot of players that just currently aren't going to enjoy Planetside right now. And that's really important for everybody, I think, for the existing players and for the new players that are out there that can give it a shot. We are planning to use the AI turrets for things like the tutorial, and potentially down the road we're also going to use them for base building is a strong term, but base defenses. Like, we could actually put the current AI that we have onto existing turrets on bases that players can put in there and make it a little bit more dynamic world interactions. And of course, there's always the, everyone always asks about it, potentially some type of alien race coming down and, you have to kill them as a group event. And that's obviously very far out, but that's the kind of path that we have opened up now that we have the AI there.
Okay. In an interview on the Planetside 2 website, you mentioned balancing short-term and long-term goals. Obviously, as your role as producer. Now, what are the most pressing short-term and the most pressing long-term goals?
Well, short-term is always stability. I mean, obviously, when a build goes out, whether it's a hotfix or a full build or major feature release, the number one thing is to always just make sure that stability is there. Sometimes, if you look too far long-term and worry about the features that are coming in, the kind of moment-to-moment gameplay can kind of spiral out of control. And you have to make sure that one of the things that we maintain is the game stable and is the moment-to-moment gameplay there and concrete, and then we can build off of that. But we have to be really careful that we're not sacrificing that by looking too far down the road.
Okay.
Long-term goals, we have a lot of stuff in the pipe. When we were kind of even pre-launch throwing stuff up on the wall to see what we wanted to do, we have a lot of ideas for that that are still around. We have concept art for a lot of interesting things. Like, we have vehicles that you guys have probably never seen that are kicking around in concept phases. So we have a lot to pull from right now. The trick that we're trying to do right now is to just make sure that what we're adding to the game is going to be stable and obviously benefit gameplay rather than take away from the existing gameplay that we have.
Okay. Now, Planetside 2 is a unique game. I mean, it combines both FPS and MMO aspects. Like, how do you find balancing, feeding into one aspect more than the other, or how does that work as producer?
So basically, that balance is something I have to trust Matt on. That's a design question. Basically, it comes down to Matt to balance how much investment you want to have, because obviously we have more than the typical moment-to-moment shooter. We have you have a character that you're attached to, not just a set of unlocks that are on a random character that's pre-generated. So we have that aspect of it, and we want to make sure that we're not taking away from that too much. But at the same time, I think we have to be careful that we're not turning it into some kind of grind or a slog that's not really fun, because people are there for the moment-to-moment gameplay, and we don't want to put too much of that content behind walls where it requires you to grind for 50 levels before you can get there. So that's one of the balances that I think we do have, is that there's no concept in Planetside 2 of, I have to wait until I'm level X before I can participate in raids. Like, the fun part about Planetside 2 is you can make a character right now, jump in there, and be part of the end game, which is unique to most MMOs. And also the balance that I think Matt's done a really good job of kind of walking that line and making sure that everything's available. You can probably do it a little bit more uniquely or a little bit more in your style if you're willing to invest the time and effort.
I'm here with Luca, Sigmund lead designer for Planetside 2. With the Planetside 2 beta on the PS4 around the corner, how important is the new player experience, and what changes can we expect to see?
So the new player experience is hugely important because it's going to be our first time out on the console, so it's like a completely new game to all those people. So we're actually spending a ton of time on new player experience. One of the big things that we actually announced today on the live stream was about the new player island that we're making. So the way that's going to work is it's a smaller instance island where we're looking at probably 90 versus 90 versus 90 is what we're thinking right now, and it's going to be battle rank locked. So anybody who comes into the game that's below battle rank, we'll say 10 for right now, they're all going to be on this island together playing each other. So when you first come in, you'll be taken through an extremely short, kind of hand-holdy tutorial experience where we're showing you more about like Planetside 2 specific mechanics. So this is a terminal, this is how a terminal works, this is how you change your classes, that more important stuff. So we're not going to focus on, movements or things like that are more natural to people. But pretty much our main focus right now is just hammering out how to get people in, getting them to understand how to play, and moving through the game easily as soon as they cross that battle rank threshold and they're in the world, so they don't feel overwhelmed.
Right. Now, what unique challenges do you face, like moving Planetside 2 to the PlayStation 4?
Well, Planetside 2 has a lot of really complicated systems and mechanics that in general aren't like the easiest thing to explain to people visually, like the lattice and everything you see on the map essentially, and the different functions of the bases, base benefits. I mean, it's just layers upon layers of systems piled on top of your basic gameplay. So really, it's trying to figure out how to translate those in a way that people can understand without it being some kind of giant wall of like text going, this is a base, and a base can do 900 things. So really, it's just condensing everything down into the digestible chunks, essentially.
Okay. And how do you think console players will adapt to a game like Planetside 2?
I think this is going to be a really unique experience for console players because at this point, the biggest games they've been able to play multiplayer are, like Battlefield for competitive games. So, Planetside is such like a unique spectacle. When you first play it, it's overwhelming the number of people. And I think that, having new people able to see that, I think they're really going to get a kick out of it. I think the interesting thing about Planetside, which is maybe different than a lot of the console games, is our general session length. So I'm interested to see what the difference between the PC session length and the console session length is, if they like end up playing shorter or it just extends their playtime. I think there's like a lot of interesting diversity that I'm excited to see how it pans out.
Right. Now, after OMFG, what do you feel was the most significant change to Planetside 2?
Oh man, we've done so much. I think significant, honestly for me, it's the most recent shield change. Right. Like, I think that it's changed the dynamics of some of the fights, and it made it so that you can come into a base and it's a lot easier to kind of understand what's going on when it comes to, objectives and shields just in general. So for me personally, maybe it's because it's the most recent, so it's on the top of my head, but that was probably the most significant thing I think we've done, outside of, adding a completely new vehicle and an entire continent and like a bunch of giant stuff.
There's been a lot of changes.
Yeah.
That's why maybe I should have ordered. What was your favorite change?
My favorite? I think the medic update was probably, because I play almost exclusively medic. It's my favorite class in the game because I'm horrible at aiming. So I at least feel like I can help people by being supportive. But I think the medic update was awesome. I know it's kind of controversial, but the change for putting res on right click helped me out so much because I'm not accidentally like healing dudes in front of dead bodies.
Right. It's actually great. It's more intuitive that way, I think.
Totally. Yeah, it's always hard to figure out those changes once your muscle memory is used to something, but I think was a huge improvement.
Okay, and one last question. We were talking about the difference in not only Planetside 2, but the culture with consoles. Do you think like the increased, with the so-called verticality in Planetside 2 will be like one of those things that might separate it also from like other games?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Probably. I mean, I think just the scale of the world and the bases and the areas around the bases, there's a lot more that you need to adapt to, and situational awareness that you probably don't. I mean, you have to have situational awareness in all the games, but I think in Planetside 2, it's far more necessary to know what's going on around you. So I think we'll end up with people who are craving more than just point and shoot, and they can start to use like their technical awareness.
What's my favorite change?
Yeah, what was your favorite change?
I think the single biggest thing that I was really excited to get in this year was not. Can I cheat this question and say it wasn't a single change, but it was a group of changes?
Right. Yeah, it could have been like a system or something.
I was really happy to get the continent locking stuff, the outfit recruitment, outfit-based capture, and Hassan all kind of wrapped up and released in that one update in July. That was really nice to be able to get all those things finished. In terms of like a single feature that I really feel like changed the way I played the game, right. I think directives were the one that I was really excited about this year. For me, I'm a kind of achievement-based player, right. So having those things to kind of dig through and
icing on the cake.
Having goals, yeah. I think it really made it so that when I was driving home from work, I'd be thinking like, oh man, I'm going to make some progress on my gold level directive tonight, and I was really excited to do it. Whereas kind of before, it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to go earn an Araxium, or I'm 200 kills away from my next Araxium, or whatever. Right. With the directive system, I felt like I was a little bit more rewarded and a little bit more stoked to log in and play. Okay.
As a creative director, you obviously have access to a wealth of information, but I noticed you've also been putting in a lot of time playing the game. Like, how does the game feel to you as a player, or from the perspective of a player?
Man, that's a great question. There's probably not another person on the planet who's more frustrated when playing Planetside 2 than I am. I see as many bugs and I see as many problems when I'm running around playing the game as other people do. And a lot of times I know exactly what caused that problem, or I can link it back to a decision in a lot of cases that I made that means that this was an inevitable result of that decision. Right. So I can be very frustrated and annoyed when I'm playing the game. But honestly, Planetside is my jam right now. And to have a game that I'm coming to work and, conservatively putting a solid, 7 to 8 hours a week into here at the office, when I'm going home after working that hard on a project like this. At least I'm kidding. But that I still actually want to drive home and play, and that when I get in my car, I'm actually thinking about like, oh man, I hope there's a really good fight when I get home because I want to play some. Is cool. It's a double-edged sword, though, in a lot of ways, because, like I said, I get super irritated by it. For a while, you might have seen, if you're like keeping track of what I'm playing, if you know I'm playing the game a lot, I basically dropped off the face of the earth on my Higby character, and it was because I would just get tells all the time from people asking about, hey, when is this going to get fixed or whatever, and it's like,
I can only imagine.
On one hand, it's cool because I want to be able to like give people info and communicate and hear what their problems are and get feedback from players. And I really love that about playing on that character. Right. But at a certain point, in addition to it being my job, it's also my hobby. And it's my biggest stress relief. Like being able to just log on and do the endless runner murder simulator for, 2 hours or so when I get home and just slay people without thinking about it too much is a really great way for me to unwind after working on the game at work. Right. So it's definitely my jam. It's my game that I want to play more than anything else. But at the same time, like a lot of times playing it frustrates me more than the stress relief I get out of actually playing it. Right. Well, so it's definitely very interesting. And I've put in, I don't know, probably close to 400 or 500 hours this year alone.
That's a good chunk of time right there.
For sure.
Yeah. Now it's actually really great to hear your passion for not only making the game but playing it. Now, obviously, you're a noted esports fan, and I know you're into StarCraft. How does it feel to have, not necessarily esports, but competitive events coming out from the thing you created?
I love it. Like seeing the stuff that like the Server Smash guys have been doing, and like what Tav and the crew are doing with Farmers League. It's great, man. It really is. And I love seeing the competitive outfits that really care about this kind of stuff. And it's very gratifying to have been able to make an MMO that can support competitive FPS players actually playing a competitive game. And yeah, it's not the base game. It's not the same thing as playing the live game, right? But the fact that the mechanics are there and they're polished enough and work well enough to get some of these like really high level, very experienced FPS players to actually spend their time playing squad versus squad, to me means that we did something very right. And it's very gratifying to me to see them not only going through the motions of having that tournament, but all the work that they've actually put in on their own to do it. It means a lot to me, for sure.
Right, because I noticed you had the right idea, and I think when you said that, it's important that things start organically instead of, from the developer point of view, forcing it on them.
Yeah.
But with that frame of mind, I want to try and get a prediction out of you. Who do you think is going to take Farmers?
I want to say Recursion. I think they have a really good squad, and I think they've had a couple of really tough matches recently. I still want to see... I think Recursion is the only outfit of the... I think there's probably 4 that are kind of the ones that everybody assumes are going to be the top tier ones, right? You have AC, DA, Recursion, and Future Crew, and those 4 are kind of they're like the mean ones, the ones to watch. And I think between those 4, the only one I haven't really seen put up the strongest roster possible is Recursion. Like they've at least from my knowledge of their players, I've seen them usually run like maybe 4 of their best dudes, but I've never seen them throw all 6 of like their best crew up on a match, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them do that.
Yeah, I think the best thing too, not only like you said that the rule set or the game, the MMO aspect is amenable to a competitive format, but that the competitive format is so well done. And I think that the conversation, just even asking these questions, us having these questions, is so huge for this type of thing.
Yeah.
What would you say to to the community about these types of events?
Just to support it. Like, these guys put in a lot of work, and I've seen some of the Farmers League matches. They get up to 250, 300 viewers or so, and that's awesome. I think especially when you look at how Planetside has done as a streaming title over the course of its life. I mean, that's a pretty decent sized audience to tune in for a non-official stream for Planetside 2. And, these guys, now they're doing it twice a week. And, Server Smash is still happening kind of irregularly, but it still happens. And just support it. And that's what those dudes are doing it for. They're not getting paid. We're not tossing a bunch of promotional money over to farmers to help them, for them helping us promote our game. We didn't ask them to run this league. They came to us and said, hey, can you give us a little bit of support for us to do it? We're going to do it ourselves. And they have. I mean, they do their own administration. They manage the rosters. And they're putting a lot of time and effort into it. Fucking look at the Farmers League website. It's a really well put together site.
It's really polished.
Yeah, so they're putting a real effort into doing it, and it's cool to see the numbers keep creeping up in terms of the people who are watching it. And I'm very excited to see as the semis and the finals are coming, how we can see it grow.
Okay, one last question. What are you most looking forward to? Going into the 3rd year of Planetside 2.
One of the things that I'm really looking forward to is that I feel like we've recently, in the last 3 or 4 months, kind of hit a cusp in terms of what we're at for future development. And that was the point at which the actual base game was pretty much solid enough that we aren't constantly trying to plug holes and constantly trying to work out new items to solve balance issues or whatever. And there was a long time where through just omission or through things not quite working exactly right, a lot of our balance and a lot of our core gameplay wasn't 100%. It wasn't solid. And I feel like it is really, really solid right now. Our core gameplay and our core mechanics are really good. Our hit detection's feeling good. The latency in general feels pretty good. So the game itself, I feel like, is ready for us to spend and dedicate more effort to adding to, rather than solving the problems that are already there. And in the next year, I'm really looking forward to seeing what type of additions we make. I think 2 that I'm really excited about that we haven't talked too much about, so they're kind of a scoop, is I really want to do a complete revamp of base benefits. And we've talked a little bit about the way that we want to do those. But I think that if we can create the strategic meaning for why this base matters, why this other base matters, and why you want to hold it, that's more important than any other metagame issues that other people bring up. Resource system with dynamic collection and resources is cool, but if that base doesn't matter, then it doesn't, the act of capturing it or defending it doesn't really matter either. Until we can give them some sort of purpose and some sort of, oh shit, we're about to lose this tech plant. We need to hold this tech plant. There's one in the world that anybody actually cares about in that context, If once we have those benefits in there and once they actually are tied to something that's meaningful to players, I feel like it'll make the rest of the strategic gameplay really come together, because then it'll suddenly matter, oh, you're going to hold this base and we're going to lose this other one because our benefit here is more important than them achieving a benefit for capturing this other thing. And I think that it's not very hard for us to solve those sorts of issues either. So that, and now that we have basic AI functionality in for like the engineer turret, I'd really like for us to do more in terms of allowing outfits who capture a base to do things like upgrade the defenses in that base. So one thing that we've kicked around a little bit is the idea of, for example, on a tower at Zervan, right, one of the wall towers there,
Right.
you typically have, maybe 2 flak turrets up top and 2 spear turrets in the bottom, right, or one up top and one
Right.
at the bottom. What I would like to do is have each one of those towers have 4 slots per floor that you can dynamically put turrets on if you're the outfit that owns that base. So you can go up and you can just say, hey, you know what? I want 3 more anti-air turrets up here, and bam, you get 3 more manable anti-air turrets. And then you can upgrade those. So if you decide to, you can upgrade it to a Mark II anti-air turret and then upgrade it again, and it becomes AI controlled. I really love the idea of an outfit capturing Zervan, spending some nanites on upgrading all these turrets around it, and suddenly it's this gigantic pain in the ass of a hardcore base right in the middle of the map with AI flak turrets going off, and as you're flying around, you actually have to really be careful about it. Now, capturing that base is critical because you can't just circumvent it. You can't just fly over it to get to another spot.
Right.
If you don't do something about it, it's just going to be a pain in your ass. And I think that'll add a lot to the outfit ownership concept. I think that'll add a lot to base defenses and bases being more valuable. And I think combined with the idea of meaningful base benefits, that'll add more meta than any of the other systems that we've ever really talked about or discussed, or that anybody else is kind of talking about or discussing. Those other things, totally. Resource system with harvesting and all that stuff, absolutely. Something that we should be adding into the game. But until we solve the basic, why does this place matter? Why does this place matter? It's just, you're basically doing the exact same thing here. If it doesn't matter before, it won't matter then, even if there's like a resource mini game that you can play around the base. So that adding that meaning, adding that context, and then adding the ability for players to really own a place and change the dynamics of that place through their ownership are 2 things that I'm really excited about hitting next year.